Hi there, and welcome to the Anita Chat podcast. I'm your host, Anita Rombo, and this is the podcast for growth-oriented women to have authentic, real talk. Nothing is off the table here, but as an intuitive self-relationship coach, you'll find the content gravitates towards mindset, intentional action, spirituality, and all things wellness. So if you're ready to learn, laugh, show up, and glow up to be the best version of yourself, grab your favorite bevy, settle in, and we've got lots to chat about. Hello and welcome to another episode of Anita Chat. I hope you guys are doing well. Friends, I am so excited to be with you here today because this is the first guest episode of season 2 of the chat. I'm so excited to welcome Elena Ferranto. Elena is a great friend of mine, a fellow coach. We share a love for spirituality and self-development, and our paths crossed in a logical way, but just felt like we were meant to be together. So Elena, I'm so excited to welcome you to the show. Why don't you start with introducing yourself to my community?
Well, hello everyone. I'm here in the beautiful sunny San Diego, and I'm originally from Eastern Siberia, so it's nice to have the sun. Siberia, for those of you who are wondering where this name is coming from, because Elena Ferranto sounds like Italian, but no, Siberia. I came to the States about 18 years ago. It's kind of crazy to think that it's been so long. And I got my MBA here. For the last 5 years, I've been coaching, launching programs, launching books. Most importantly, I have a 5.5-year-old boy, and I have a little baby girl. She's 7 months old. So they keep me busy. I call myself a holistic business coach, just because all the business stuff, it's great. I love it, and with my background, that stuff seems to be pretty easy to me, but I just know that this is not all of the story, and there's so much more to it. And mindset, the state, of course, and then you can go even deeper than that. Past lives, our soul lessons, all of those great things. And when I do my business coaching, so I like to pull into all these different modalities. And there are people, good people, coaches, healers, people with knowledge who want to, give to the world, and they start on this path, and then they end up, spinning their wheels and really barely getting by. And I was there myself when I just started into coaching, and it was a very humbling experience. So that's why I'm very passionate now to work with those great people, helping them finally start making money in this coaching or healing business, sharing their knowledge. And so it's been really fun to bring from the both worlds, from the material, pragmatic, and then from the spiritual side as well.
And I feel like that's where our connection really solidified, right? So full disclosure, Elena and I met in a coach's mastermind. So we're part of the same core group of people that are really working to amplify our businesses. We have these really big visions, and it's all lovely. And both you and I come from this logical background. I too did my MBA. I too just released my book. I too have a 2 children, a young family. And I am very pragmatic and kind of integrated other aspects of who I have always been, but just haven't really shown it to the forefront when life took an unexpected turn for me. And so what I do as well is work with spiritually curious people. And just like you, I'm very passionate about self-discovery and self-improvement. And I use a lot of spirituality as well as science and strategy to make that all gel together. So I feel like we approach the same kind of people, we have the same vision, and no wonder that we just clicked right away.
Yeah, hello, sister.
Yeah, totally. So that leads me to why you're here today. Oh, you're holding up my book.
Yes,
I love that.
Talking about the book. Yes, I got your book, and I was reading it, and I just love it. I loved your chapter and a couple more, and I love the concept overall of the collection of those stories. And it's funny talking about the similarities, because I was reading your chapter and how you were sharing about how you met your husband in Accounting 101, and I was laughing about it because that's how I often talk about how my husband and I met during our MBA program as well, how we did our accounting together. And this is what happens.
You're kidding me.
So for all the single ladies out there, so accounting, it seems like the place to be, by the way.
Accounting is pretty boring, I gotta say. It can't be more vanilla or like straight-laced than accounting, right? But that is just a weird, how coincidental is that? I had no idea about that. That just blows my mind. Thank you so much for your support of the book. And it's just so nice to hear from people that have read it and get their impressions. And I think, again, knowing what I know about you, I could see that you would see yourself in that story because we have such similar paths. So that's really cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm
Hmm.
excited to have you here specifically for a reason. I mean, for so many reasons, but as you know, like I geek out on self-discovery, as do you. I use things like tarot cards and I love journaling and meditation and breath work. And in our coaches mastermind, you introduced me to this whole different tool that I'd never heard of before. And you're using that to drive change and transformation with your clients. So I wanted other people to hear about this too, because this was new to me. And so I'll let you talk about that, but maybe you could start about how you discovered this tool and then what this tool is, and we can go into all the good stuff.
Absolutely. I'll start to, with the back story first. So I come from, the place where metaphysical stuff, it just seems like it's everywhere. Growing up in Siberia, it's a melting pot of different cultures. There is a Buddhist temple, there is an Orthodox church, there are shamans doing their thing, and people just tend to come up to you and say, oh yeah, I just saw this spirit near you, blah blah blah. And it seems like those types of people just find me. Like when I was little, I remember my mom had a friend who told me, oh, by the way, in your past life you were a sailor and you drowned. And I had a phobia of water, so I was so afraid of being even just up to my knee in water. So that made sense to me, and then actually that phobia went away afterwards. And then another teacher of mine just told me, oh, by the way, you're gonna get married to a sailor. And I was like, okay, sailor again, twice? Like I was a sailor, and now I'm gonna get married to a sailor in this lifetime? What the heck? This sailor keeps coming back. And then, fast forward many years, I'm married to a former Coast Guard officer.
Oh, really?
So I did get
Wow.
married to a sailor. Yeah, I remember the moment I saw a picture in his house. He invited me to a potluck, and I saw a picture of him in the white uniform, like a sailor uniform. And I was like, what? Are you a sailor? He's like, yes. And I tell him, we're going to get married. So he freaked out. He freaked out. We've known each other for 2 weeks, but, we've been married now for many, many, many years and have 2 kids together. So, but it's funny. And then I moved to the States, and I kind of actually leaned away from all the mystical, metaphysical stuff that I was surrounded with when I was a kid until life didn't bring me back to that from my personal crisis. And that's how it typically happens. And, in 2016, that year was really hard for me. It was kind of a low point, I would say, my winter. At that point, I was director of strategy at the agency. Work-wise, there's a lot of work, great clients. We were signing, million-dollar accounts. And at that point, on the personal side, I was trying to get pregnant, and I had an ectopic pregnancy. That really left me, empty inside and out. After that, I was struggling to get pregnant for a while, and so that was the winter for me. And then, of course, the only way at that point, I was thinking, okay, I got to change something. So I decided, to move away from that career that I was on, and I joined a startup. And the startup had a big mission. It was an impact travel marketplace. So it really, resonated with me. And I thought if I add a big mission to it, then maybe that will fill me up. And I also really got into all the self-development stuff back then. My husband and I went on all kinds of retreats. We went to Africa. We lived in Kenya for a couple of years. I did, different paths and tried different teachers. And then I did get pregnant. My spring has come. And obviously, as I shared in the beginning, I have 2 kids. And that was a really dynamic time for me. So it's like, I know many people have kids, and then, it's harder alone to just have a baby in your house. But for me, it was such a, boost of energy in that first year when my son was born. I launched several programs. I really started doing coaching on the side, along with my startup. And I met this one girl. She also wrote a book, and I wrote a book at that time. So we bonded over that. And she wrote a book about purpose. And I was really geeking out on all things like, why am I here? What are we here to do? All those big questions. And so I really resonated with her book and what she was working on. And so we decided, what about starting a project together? So we actually launched a group program for people who are struggling to find purpose. So I was coming at it from the business standpoint. She was coming at it from her, researcher on purpose and all things career. So it was a really nice partnership. And as we were working on that program, we researched everything on the topic of purpose. What are Stoic philosophers saying about this, astrology, numerology, professors from Stanford. So both sides of it. We kind of just wanted to have a very rounded view of it. And one time, this partner of mine, and she's a former engineer, also very structured, logical person. She's like, I tried this numerology thing. And this lady, she just blew off my socks. Like, it was so spot on. And I was so surprised to hear about this type of stuff from her, because I was like, initially, in our partnership, I was the one who was into all of that stuff. And, she was the more logical one of us too. So I was like, oh, wow, amazing. So you're bringing me something like that? Okay, cool. I'll try it out as well. So so I did this reading, and because I've done natal charts, human design readings, all kinds of things before, but this was very, very specific to the point where I was like, wow, it matched up so much that I want to now try it with everyone I know. So I tried it, with my husband, my kids, well, now my kids, back then it was just my son, my, mother-in-law, grandma, like everyone I know, then my girlfriends. And for me, it was more like, I just want to get more evidence, like empiric evidence that it matches up with everyone I do it for. And because, my logical parts, like I want some explanation of how is she doing this reading so, so spot on. And then, after I, collected maybe 50 pieces of information, it was like, okay, for all those people I know, it matched up. So now I started bringing that reading into my work. I called it Soul Curriculum. The lady who is doing it, she's from Russia. And it's funny because I was trained as an interpreter. It's kind of the very first, the way I learned English was being an interpreter, and I was a guide as well. So I feel like now I'm interpreting this information into English, and so kind of using some of those skills to bring this to people who speak English as well, and my clients who are actually all over the world. But yeah, that's the long story, how I even stumbled upon all of that.
So the Soul Curriculum reading, and yeah, you're right. Like all the dots do line up, right? You're interpreting the results of this, and you're bringing this into other people's worlds, and you're guiding them through a transformation, just like you did interpreting, right?
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So the Soul Curriculum reading blew my mind, I have to say. So you gave us in our mastermind a little opportunity for like a teaser. So of course I would obviously put my hand up for it. And it was like, okay, yeah, this is cool. And I was like, Elena, we should chat. Your people, or people that would resonate with what you're talking about and doing, are the people that are in my community. And so let's share the love, right? It's going to be great. And I could talk about this for hours with you. And then everyone, you have such a kind heart. You went above and beyond. You got me a full detailed reading. So it wasn't just the teaser, which like already I was like, oh, I want this. Like I want to know more. You went all out and got all the details. You got it expedited so that you could geek out on it for me. I just want to thank you for that. And I thought, I want to share my answers. So I have, full disclosure, had a conversation with Elena. I have seen my results, and I'm an open book. So I really, there's nothing that you can't share. There's nothing that will embarrass me or anything like that. So I will leave it to you to talk to us or walk us through the Soul Curriculum reading. So what it is, so we just talked about the fact that you found it. It's very accurate. Even if you're logical, you were convinced it's accurate. Okay, so now tell me more about what this reading is, and then maybe walk them through my results so that they can kind of get a sense for that a little bit, like a flavor of the kind of information that comes from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for being an open book. I'm very cautious about ever, sharing any sensitive information. So it's amazing that, you're giving us this green light to basically, share away.
Oh, yeah. I'm an oversharer in general, so I stop now.
Great. Just a little more background of the Soul curriculum. So there is a lot you can tell about a person by their date of birth, time of birth, and many different modalities use that, astrology, numerology, human design being, some of those. And it's based on this underlying idea that when the soul, is born, the soul basically knows what kind of lessons it's gonna go through in this lifetime, and the soul chooses the time to be born. And it's funny and interesting that even if it's a C-section or like planned C-section, it's still the vibrations of the soul kind of make the doctors choose a certain date for the planned C-section. So even in those circumstances, it's still like it was meant to be that way. Every number carries certain energy with it. And Soul Curriculum helps you to really find out how this energy is channeled from you and what you can do with it. What I like to start with is that, this concept of purpose, right? So quite often when I did the program in Russian about finding your purpose, people would come to me and say, I'm trying to figure out my purpose, but what they really meant is like, I'm trying to figure out my career and what I'm supposed to do. I'm not happy with my job right now. What do I do next? But the purpose is much more multidimensional than that. And I like this metaphor of a diamond where, there are different sides to this diamond. And, one side of it is your soul lessons. Really, like, if at a high level, we are here to evolve our souls and to grow our souls and to try all kinds of roles for our souls. So one part that you can reveal with the Soul Curriculum reading is like, okay, so what are the soul lessons I'm here to learn? If you look at this diamond from a different side, there will be another dimension, which is like your karmic story. Like karmically speaking, like what are some things you've done in your past lives, and how it is connected to what you're going through right now. If you keep rotating this diamond and look at a different dimension, there is your family, your ancestors, your lineage. And so there is a certain mission for your family that you're here to fulfill as well. And then there is the social aspect, like your mission, towards the world. And that's the one dimension that when people talk about the purpose, they often think just of that one dimension. So in Soul Curriculum highlights like all of those dimensions plus some more things that I'll highlight. But let's dive into yours specifically.
I'm nervous. I don't know I'm not nervous, but I'm nervous because I'm like, I don't know what she's gonna choose. So it's the fear of the unknown. I'm so in, all in. Go for it.
All right. Well, so let's start with your soul lessons. And I actually have your whole Soul Curriculum right here, printed out. All, I don't know how many pages, 20 something pages. Yeah. So as far as the soul lessons, my structured mind really likes that the way this lady explains it, there are 4 levels of the School of Earth. So, we come to the School of Earth to learn lessons, and there are 4 levels. Each level has 12 lessons, and 12 main lessons, and then there's the 13th one, which is the exam one. So overall, there are 52 lessons. And so you, my love, on level 2, lesson 25, and I'll explain what that means. So 4 levels. Level 1, we come to learn about love, relationships. Level 2, we come to gain knowledge, skills. It's all about professional development, professional growth. That's the one you are on.
Makes so much sense already, just based on that.
Yeah,
all the different things I've done, right? The quintessential high achiever, textbook learner, multi-passionate. Yeah.
Oh my God! Again, in your book, I was reading about
always in school.
All the degrees you have. Yeah,
yes, and I'm always in school for something or learning something. Okay.
Well, yep, makes total sense. Level 3 is all about practical wisdom and money, like financial expression into this world. Money is energy, right? So that's a big piece of level 3. And level 4 is about spirituality, about talent, creativity. And it doesn't mean that if you're on level 1, 2, or 3, you're not creative, you're not spiritual. So no. So just on level 4, your direct specific lesson will be, tightly related to that. And just to give, some examples of what those lessons can be, because I'll share what yours is, but I'll give a few more examples. Like on level 1, for example, it could be the lesson of unconditional love. And even, you know, when love is not returned or not given, like a person who doesn't have parents or grew up as an orphan, you know, but still like having this love for the life that they have, for example. On level 2, it could be, you know, being open-minded to knowledge from people you disagree with. And, you know, people on a completely different opinion from you, and just being able to absorb information from them as well and take it. Or learning from people of different cultures and going to a different country and learning there. I actually had one friend of mine who did this reading, and so it's interesting, and she did it for her and for her mom, and they turned out to be energetic twins. And what that means is that they were on exactly the same lesson. And it was interesting because the main lesson was to learn abroad and from a different culture, move countries. And her mom, she didn't move. And so the way my soul curriculum lady explained it is like, well, the daughter came to help mom fulfill this lesson. So the daughter then moves from Russia to the United States, and then bring her mom along with her afterwards. So she basically in the same lesson, but that's kind of how she helped her mom do that by doing it herself. On level 3, the lessons about money, it could be something about your relationship with risk, for example. It's people who are into gambling, trading, and all of those things, then, you know, they're gonna learn for that, like losing big money, making big money, and then losing it again, like those types of things. Or you know, having a big fear of money and like trying to create stability in your life. Level 4 could be about you know, being with people who are at the lowest of low in life. Like it could be, you know, helping homeless or people who are in jail, and, you know, somehow you are in this lifetime to be around those people, and you're going to be their light. And help them out. So some of the, I would say, toughest lessons are on level 4. So you're on level 2 and lesson 25. So you're kind of close to the middle of all of the lessons, and you're towards the end of level 2. So next one will be an exam round for you. No pressure.
This is totally like, how do I prepare for this exam? My like high achieving brain just wants to know.
Oh, you're level 2. Yeah, yeah.
Also, can you share how old I am in soul years? Because that made me laugh out loud.
Yes, absolutely. Your soul age is 4,608 years. Plus, you know, that's the age you were born. So then add your current age, and then you'll find out your actual soul age.
My birthday next week, so I guess I'm older than my years in real life.
Yeah, I saw that, and that's why I was super excited to give the soul curriculum to you just in time. And that's typically, it's quite often, you know, I've done this for people for their birthdays, for, you know, anniversaries and different things like that. Yeah. So let's go back to your soul curriculum, if you don't mind.
Sure,
I want to
sure.
share some juicy details of your past lives, and like, just kidding. But yeah, so your lesson is about you know, being able to balance your career, but also help others to thrive in their careers, because, you know, you're not new on this level, right? So it's like lesson 12 out of 13 on this level. So you've done this before, like you've done professional growth, you've learned a lot, so you have a ton of knowledge already. So it's not enough to just for you to be professionally successful. You have to help others as well, which is amazing. Knowing you, I know that that's exactly what you're doing. So as far as, you know, being a good student and helping others choose the right direction, you know, providing support for their professional paths, that totally makes sense. Yeah. It's also interesting that for you, because you have so much knowledge, it will be hard for you to just stay in one lane, right? You will be expressing yourself in many different directions professionally. And again, knowing you now, I'm like, okay, totally makes sense why you're going in all these multiple directions. And there's also an emphasis for you to balance the 3 key pillars in your life. It's, you know, family, career, and creativity. And, you know, not being able, it's important for you not to drop any of those balls. So And again, I'm loving that you're creatively expressing yourself for the book and, you know, other things,
Yeah.
and you're doing your career and your family life.
So all of this really resonates, especially in this evolution as a coach. I mean, a lot of the people that I work with are people that are looking for their quote unquote purpose and help professionally and like launching their businesses or excelling in the corporate world. So I do see that, yes, I've come this far, but like I have made it my life's mission to like support other people in thriving, and through them, I thrive. So that's number one. Number two, I think you mentioned something about mentoring people. Is that right?
Yeah.
So just maybe about 2 to 3 months ago, I started this engagement where I'm actually mentoring a high school student um, through this amazing program, and I like want to work for them because, of course, that quintessential multi-passionate is all like, oh, right, I love this mission. But again, just helping them academically navigate their schooling and their career decisions and how do they make those powerful choices. And you mentioned that mentorship and children specifically, and I think you said women, right? And the group that I'm affiliated with right now, they cater to high school women, high school girls.
Oh,
So I don't know. I don't know if I told you that when you shared those results, but I was like, oh, floored, because you just covered so much of what I'm doing right now. And I don't know, the last 2 weeks, I've been waking up at 5:30 every morning to work on book number 2. So the
wow.
creativity piece is definitely in full
Well,
swing. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, and that's where you're gonna be at your maximum energy too when you're doing all of those things.
totally.
Yeah. So that's in very short your soul lesson, your key soul lesson. There's way more to it, and of course, some of my clients, you know, who I work with for a year, we basically go through this, you know, from a little piece at a time, because it's a lot of information at once, and I like people to be able to digest it. So I'm just going to highlight a couple more things. Yeah, so that's the soul lesson. And the second piece is typically the karmic journey and the karmic story. And, you know, some people for the first time on this lesson, other people, you know, will return back to it. And so in your case, yeah, that's not the first time you're here. But that's okay. Repetition never
Yeah.
hurts anyone, right? And so there is this whole karma reading part, which is different from your soul lessons. And there are recommendations on, again, like what not to repeat in this lifetime, and also what to do to make this journey a little more pleasant, and, you know, not to run into any struggles. So that part, I'm not going to go too much into detail. I feel like that's a little more personal. I'll just say that, you know, it sometimes can play out in many different unexpected ways. I had a client who had a karmic emotion of shame. And it's interesting because, you know, there's shame around money, and like how in the past life she, you know, did something not so nice to other people around money, and in this lifetime she has a, you know, a big you know, feeling of shame every time she has to charge money, and she's really struggling with that. So that's something, you know, and I work on the emotional level as well. So we work with shame and transmute it, and, you know, work with vulnerability and different things around that to transmute that emotion in this lifetime. And I've had, you know, my own story of in my past life, you know, totally unrelated to career, but I'll share because it's also a crazy story of how in my past lifetime I supposedly didn't treat a dog nicely, and in this lifetime I had a phobia of dogs, and this was like so hard to live with, especially here in the States where everyone has dogs and 2 dogs in their house sometimes, and it's like they're kids, and I'm the one who shows up and says, "Oh my God, can you put the dog away?" Because I'm freaking afraid, and my heart starts beating. And then I do the reading, and it turns out that karmically I had a karmic story with dogs before. You know, I don't know what I did, but I didn't do nice to dogs. So I was able to untangle like that. This was then, and this is now. And it was crazy. I've done lots of things to try to, you know, figure out this phobia, but this like understanding, this awareness, and then just the mantra of this was then and this was now, it really helped me. And, you know, now my heart is not pumping, or I'm not sweating around dogs. I've had pictures kissing dogs and being around them, which is, crazy. Like, it solved a big problem for me.
Oh
Just
yeah.
that
That
little
sounds
thing,
like a big move from a phobia to like hugging and kissing a dog, right? So,
Yeah.
like, I mean, again, I'm an open book. So if you want to share something, that's fine. What I mean, it's hard to say for me when I heard it. I mean, like sometimes, when you hear kind of what kind of a person you were in the past, you don't have control over that, right? You don't have a memory of that. You have a soul memory, I guess, right? Like, because your soul is carrying out the karmic stuff. So to me, it didn't affect me in that negative way. It was just like, oh, like, okay, like, I mean, I can't control that. I can't go back in
Yeah.
time. But one thing I did take comfort in is that you said something about my karmic debts have been repaid or something. So that felt good. I think one of the things you said, I'm trying to remember, I think you said fear of poverty, and
Yes.
like maybe
Mhm.
making decisions that were very like maybe not kind to other people because to advance my own financial gain or status. Is that right?
Yes, you did have large long-term financial debts in your past life. And in the end, it might have led you to poverty, and you lost home, maybe squandered fortune in that past incarnation. So yeah, in this lifetime, you might have a fear of poverty. And it's interesting how it ties in with some other pieces of the soul curriculum, which I'll mention later. And how it's so important for you to have that financial
And I
stability right
don't
now.
disagree with any of that. I don't disagree with any of that. And I also will say, again, entrepreneur to entrepreneur, I think when you're an entrepreneur, it's another element of a personal discovery journey, right? And so all the kind of baggage or things that, like if you have a full time job that pays the bills every 2 weeks and like there's a steady income supply, that really kind of quashes that fear of poverty because you feel stable. But entrepreneurship is very uncomfortable that way, right? You don't get paid just for showing up. You get paid for results. You get paid for like, and so that felt a lot more risky to me at the very beginning. And I really had to, and I still have to very consciously work on money mindset. Like for me, that's my area of growth as an entrepreneur. So I definitely see that imprint for sure.
Yeah, no, we all do have those things, and yeah, and then we start seeing, each other more compassionately when we understand. Well, yeah, we've tried lots of different things in our past lives, and not sometimes not good things, and that's
Yeah.
what helps our soul evolve as well. Yeah, so that's the karmic part, and yeah, there is this part where, for some people, that in the readings, it shows that you already paid fully for those deeds. And the key is just not to repeat those. And then for other people, it will say that, yep, you've done all of those things and you haven't repaid it. So in this lifetime, these are some of the things you got to do to make up for it. And that's also very helpful, because sometimes people are scared to do these types of readings. Or what if I'll find out something really scary? But the truth is, like, if you find out something like you've done, then there are basically instructions. Okay, here are the things you can do to not run into any of the
Very
difficulties
similar to
in this
tarot that
lifetime.
way too, right? A lot of people think of tarot the same way, but it's all energy and it's all like advice, right? So if you like what the energy is showing you, keep going in that direction. If not, we can figure out how to work with that energy and change it.
Yeah, it's not like fortune telling where it
No.
will anchor you into something like, oh, something is bad is coming to you. So that's why I also really like it, because it's more, okay, how do I make this, business and life journey easier and more fun and more
It's a
aligned?
tool.
And
It's a tool.
yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Okay, give me
Yeah.
more.
All right. So moving on. So there is that family mission, right? Afterwards, what's your, what are you here to do for your lineage and for future generations and for the past? For you, it's uniting the family. It's pretty straightforward, and different people can do it in, all kinds of ways. Some kids can unite family around an illness, and where the whole family is rallying around them. Someone can become super famous and everyone wants to come around them as well and cheer on for them. And then others could just, keep family tradition and, do a family reunion every year or something like that. So it's, up to you how you do that. But basically, the elder in the cluster of souls said, Anita, you got to go because, in our family, there is some stuff going on where, we need unification, and you're the right soul to do that. So that's that. Yeah. I remember when we talked about this, you mentioned something about how you do love creating, traditions.
Very big on traditions, very, very big on traditions. But I would also say that just from a personal perspective, I did unify our family to an extent over kind of a situation that maybe wouldn't have been viewed favorably, but honestly, like we had the best possible outcome. And part of that outcome was just healing and bringing people together. And I'm not the center of the story by any means, but I think I was a big part of making it better, making things better for everyone. So I see that it's very important for me to create traditions. I'm very, very fixated on celebrations. Love it. So yeah, I can see that.
Yes. All right.
I won't host a dinner party though.
I'll take a note of that.
I'll order in, but I will not host a dinner party. That just stresses me out.
All right. Yes, we're coming out of Thanksgiving and into holidays, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the same way actually.
Sister.
I know. Yeah, my husband is the one in charge of hosting and like actually, making menu and cooking. So. Let's move on to your social mission. I think that's the piece that lots of people are very interested in typically when, ordering things like this. And your main social task in this lifetime is using your intuitive gifts. Overall, the whole soul curriculum, there's so much intuition everywhere, sprinkled in different parts of it about how intuitive you are and how it's a must for you to use that, developing your intuition and really turning to the higher powers more often and trusting your intuition. And it's interesting how you're being this link between, the heaven and the earth, and between the worlds of the living and the dead. You might, be able to use some of your abilities. You might have dreams when, deceased ones show up and share messages
all the
to
time.
you.
Yeah.
Yep.
So cool.
That's totally.
And I think I even read the word tarot in there as well in the reading. I'm like, what? Like tarot, astrology, like Chris, like all these things that I geek out on. And you're right. It wasn't just in this one section. It was peppered throughout. So that's pretty cool. And again, I don't disagree with anything that's come up, even the unfavorable stuff, even stuff from like those lives that I don't know. I mean, I don't know, but I don't disagree with it because I can't prove it wrong. But, some of those themes definitely still like resonate. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny, often, people go to an astrologist or a numerologist and hoping that they'll get a very specific answer of like, okay, maybe I should be a teacher, teaching math at this particular college, or, start this mastermind on this topic, and then everything will just work out. And the truth is, it's, the answer is not as specific, and you can be successful, following many different paths. It does include recommended activities, and that's also quite a fun part for me because I see so many just like matches. On mine, it was like guide interpreter as well, and wow. I was a guided interpreter, and
I don't remember what this said for me.
So for you, it said anything where you use your healing, intuitive, and psychic abilities, and that's where a tarot reading came up. Astrology, psychic readings, people associated with the process of birth and death, right? Because you're the link between those two worlds. So any professions related to this, like delivery nurses, doulas, funeral home workers, so even like that stuff. And it was, I remember, I think you said that you actually thought of being a midwife at some point.
Yes. Once I had my children, I would, again, lifelong learner. If I was going to do another degree, I would love to be a midwife.
Yeah. So that blew my mind. I was like, well, that stuff I wouldn't know. Right. So then writing, which makes sense. Hello. Writing your second book there, personal development field. Then there was archaeology, again, like totally random. And then what did you say?
I said when I was a kid, I wanted to be an archaeologist. And I was like, what? I I love the idea of like being in some dirty place and with a little brush. Like I could just see I always wanted to do that as a kid.
Yep. So here it is on this list. And again, I would never know that that's actually something, or neither would this lady from Russia who did the reading. So that stuff, like, just so fun to me to do when I hear stories like that. So I was like, okay, another match and another story and another case.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's your social mission. So that's kind of the main four components. But then there are other things that are super helpful. So basically, when the soul, comes to this school of earth, the soul knows what kind of lessons it needs to learn. So the soul chooses specific energies to help with the lessons. So there are certain positive energies that you bring with you, and it's not like your qualities or features of character. It's more like features of in your operations manual, something that you can turn on or off. And those features can help to see, are you right now going on towards the right path, or if you're veering off from it, right? So there are certain signs. So when you are using your positive energies, when you are on the right path, you are, all just love, right? You're leaning into love. You're here to love, to be loved, give your heart to others. You're warm, caring, all of those things. And you selflessly serve and help others. That's when you're at your best. You're also doing what you love. You inspire others. You connect in people. And as far as relationships, it's so easy go and make friends, negotiate, build long-term relationship. So all of those things. And then there is the other side of it. It's kind of like the shadow side, in a way, the negative energies. And those energies are kind of like a shortcut. They're easy to tap into sometimes. And it's important whenever you notice those to lean back into your positive energies. So whenever, in your specific example, like your negative energies, when you get fixated onto something, right? So negative thoughts, unhealthy perfectionism, or you care too much about opinions of other people, you're trying to be good to everyone. So when you're into those energies, like that's like a trigger. It's like, okay, I'm right now moving away from myself, from my home base. And the key to get back to myself is to go into my positive energies. For you, it's lean into love. So leaning into love.
I can
remember,
do
yeah, exactly. And you have this motherly energy about you. And, like your code is called protect of others, protect and support of others. So that's just remembering, that's who I am. And, going like all these negative energies can just be a distraction for you, right? So when you know them and you have the words to them, then when you see that happening in your head, you just know, okay, switching back to my positive energies.
Oh, I like that. I like that.
Yeah, I have mine printed out, and I often refer back to it when different things come up, and like, okay, switching back, just turning it on.
Your reading gave us affirmations, like personalized affirmations, and I've been actually I use mine every day. I write them in my gratitude journal now. So they're my new ones. I've been just rolling with it for a little bit and seeing how they resonate.
Oh, nice. I'm so happy. So in addition to this negative energies, there is also this thing called obstacle point. And that's the part that I use the most, I think, in coaching, because, it's quite often, people see, certain blocks or obstacles that come up in their lifetime, in business, in life. And, sometimes if you read something like this and then you just put it on the shelf, then it's just still there. When you work with a coach, that's where, the beauty of working with someone, because you actually use this information and, we can refer back to it. Exactly.
Which is amazing.
Yes. And so the obstacle point, it's interesting. The word you used here, it's like imaginary thing for you. Something that kind of like on the, in the car, in the windshield, there is something that's there to distract you from your actual, full expression in this lifetime. And the key is to just use the windshield wipers and like just remove it so that it doesn't distract you. So for you, some examples, and there's a little list of like 9 things for you, but like inability to make a decision, or certain fears. Fear of not being needed, carrying childhood wounds and holding on to them. So some of those things are things that might come up for you that will be a distraction.
Absolutely. What was the first one you just said? Oh, the
Um,
decisiveness one. That made me giggle because my family, my kids and my husband, are the name for me that they have at home is waffler. And it's not because I like eating waffles, it's because I can't make a decision. And even once I make it, I will second guess it. I will sit with it. Like it just takes up so much of my mental bandwidth. I would love to see a version of me that isn't like that because I imagine how much more freer I would feel. So definitely, again, don't disagree with any of those things. Definitely have that childhood wounds. Who doesn't, right?
yeah.
We're all working through all of that. All of that sounds bang on.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is that yeah, they're called imaginary, but they will feel very real to you. It's not
Absolutely.
like you are in it. So all those fears and different mental blocks, emotional blocks, they will show up in your life, and that's where you're gonna spend so much time on those, and
Yes.
that's where all the other things that we talked about, like important things, they can sometimes be neglected because of this. Even sometimes just the awareness of this really helps because next time you're struggling with decision, you can smile about it and you're like, oh yeah, of course, that's my obstacle
Waffler.
point. Makes sense. All right, I just gotta pick something and I'll
I'm
go.
gonna tell my kids that's my obstacle point. Like, I can't help it. That's just my obstacle point.
Well, and the truth is, yes, you can help it. It's kind of, it's both liberating to know, okay, that makes sense. That's why, right? And once you know it, it's also gives you basically advice on what you can do to overcome your obstacle points. That's something also
That's a
included.
good point. It doesn't victimize us or label us. We have a choice. We always have free will.
Exactly, yeah. So it's not who you are. It's just there to distract you.
It's a tendency. It's a
It's something
tendency.
on your window, like a fly splat on your window that you
Did you say
doesn't matter why.
perfectionism? I'm like, oh my god, who are you? Like, you know me so well. Just this reading knows me so well. This lady in Russia knows me so well. This is crazy.
Yeah.
So now that I have these results, or like you give these people, like give your people these results, what is your advice on how I can use this moving forward? Because that was very robust. Everybody, we chatted for like what, maybe an hour and a half? And it was like
Yeah.
20 some odd pages of really juicy stuff that we're trying to put into this bite-sized podcast that's somewhat interesting to you, hopefully. Um, but what do I do with all of that? You're right. Like a lot of times these big meaty things like research papers, etc., they just sit in your shelf. You're like, oh, that's so cool, and you forget about it. How do I how do I use this moving forward
Absolutely.
besides
So
working with you?
So for me, when I got this, I loved it so much. I organized it for me in a nice way. I mean, the way you get it now, the formatting and everything, that's what I created for myself, just so that I can use it and it's nice and aesthetical for me. When I got mine, the first thing that I did, I was, and I'm very visual, so I had to make it nice and pretty. And so the formatting you see now with this whole curriculum, that's basically how I took all that information and designed it so that I can use it on a more frequent basis rather than just a bunch of text.
Mhm.
And I printed it out, and it's something that I like to go back to because there's so many pieces that can appear in your life and like sound differently depending on what you're going through. And it seems like whenever I feel like, okay, I'm feeling like a little lost or going back into my confusion or something, I go back to it. And I love, in your book, how it's all about coming home to yourself. And it's funny because before I even got your book, I wrote the email that I sent out about Soul Curriculum, and the phrase that I used was, for me, it's like my home, coming home. Well,
Oh, wow.
yeah, and that's that feeling I get when I reread it. I remind myself who I am, why I'm struggling with certain things, and it's my social mission is to create and to. It's the wording used was to create anything new. It could be a recipe of a new pie, or it could be a new method for something. And when I got it, at that point, I was writing my book, and it's children's book about sugar, and there are recipes in the book too. And I was like, oh, I am. And I had a Facebook group that was very active and where I shared some recipes without sugar in it. And I was like, oh, that's so funny that it's even like, I was just sharing a recipe of a pie that I created without sugar somehow. And then, for me, it was, I'm very multi-passionate. So I have all this like different projects that I'm working on. And when I worked in an agency, that made so much sense because I had so many different clients, and you know, constantly working on like 20 different projects. So that was so in line with my Soul curriculum. So then I left my agency, and you know, one startup wasn't enough. Then I'm like, okay, I got to write a book. I got to launch this program here, launch that program there. But all the coaches like, you got to choose your lane, pick a focus. And for me, that's not the thing. Like, and actually in my Soul curriculum, it says you got to create multiple new products. You can't just, you know, stay like stagnant in one thing, even if it's working. You just have to create something else. And that, you know, whenever I feel like, or someone again telling me like, okay, you got to pick a lane. Like, nope. Going back to my Soul curriculum, that's where my energy is, and that's how I'm moving through life when I do lots of different things. So that's super helpful, like as a, you know, major underlying reminder for me. So that's the same. I recommend you print it out. You go back to, there's a part of the Soul curriculum that is called your key life stages. And it actually, it's very specific to you, and the ages, like your, you know, first stage is 0 to 33, for example. And there are recommendations specifically for that, because that diamond metaphor that I used and how it's like different sides of it, depending on where you're in life, you know, sometimes, you know, one side of it, like your family mission will be primary, they'll be up, you know, in the front and center. And then other times your social mission will come up, and or karmic things. And depending again on your age. Yeah.
Can you remind me what my current focus is?
Yeah, your key thing right now is developing your intuition and sharing your knowledge and depth and love of your soul. So the main themes of this period of life is compassion, tolerance, kindness, and care towards self and others. And towards self is a big also thing here.
Yeah,
we haven't touched that, but that's,
I can't even like, even this podcast is soulful success, right? Like, I don't know. And, you know, sharing wisdom, like this is an avenue for me to be creative as well. So I don't know, just again, really, really bang on. I had one question though, while you were talking. I don't know, can we backtrack a bit? Are we allowed to do that? Okay. So you mentioned like different levels, right? And I think level 3 was like all about money. And then we talked about past lives or karmic connections or whatever. And we refer to possible kind of icky, yucky, you know, karmic thing, but it was really focused on money, right? And that's kind of where my pattern of lack kind of comes up sometimes. So does that mean that I was on level 3 in those old lives, or do they go in order? And now I'm on level 2. How does that work?
They don't go in order. In fact, it's possible that you were in level 3 and you got sent to level 2 because of the certain things that you did that, you know, it just required you to go through this particular lessons, but it's quite possible.
Okay, cool. I was just wondering, like, if you go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 exam, 2 exam, like the perfectionist regimented brain that I have would like that.
Yeah, and sometimes I remember for someone in the reading, it did say that you were sent back from, like, it was actually very specific from like one of the last levels, which is like, God. Oh man, you're all the way there, and boom. But yeah, I believe that's something that she can calculate for you as well, like figuring out exactly like where you were before. If that's something, I mean, it's you know.
Yeah, no, I'm okay. Like I mean, lessons are lessons. So I'm going with the flow. But one more question. So this amazing individual houses all this beautiful energy and ability in a gift. What happens when she's no longer with us in this earthly plane? Like, what would happen to your soul curriculum? What would happen? Is there a way to learn from her?
It's one of those things I've been learning from her a little bit here and there. I would love to take it on eventually. This is a synthesis of like different schools of numerology, astrology, tarot that she's using. So I would love to, and you know, hopefully she'll choose me as.
Well, she must definitely be very intuitive too. Right?
Well, one of her, it's interesting, one of her lessons is to transfer her knowledge abroad. And she doesn't speak English at all. And when we met, she was like, oh my God, you're going to help me with my mission and, you know, with my lessons. So like, okay.
That's really, really cool.
Yeah, she was supposed to be working with foreigners. So through me, she's working with foreigners.
Amazing. Yeah. Elena, so before we wrap up, is there anything else that you want to share about the soul curriculum, the readings, anything before we wrap up?
Well, I wanted to give your listeners a present and do a little mini soul curriculum preview so that they can at least find out like the bare minimum of what level you are on, what lesson you're on, and what the gist of the lesson. I feel like this is a very this is the information that so many times when I give it to people, it gives them hope, gives them more clarity, answers, reassurance. It's given me reassurance. So I feel like it's so helpful to pass it on. So I'll be happy to do that for you. I'm thinking also to do Anita special and offer a 10% discount to your listeners to actually get the full reading. So I'm going to set up a special page for it, and you can share it in the podcast notes.
Sure.
elenaferranto.com/Anita special, and that's where they'll be able to get the preview and get their 10% discount.
Thank you. Thank you. So the preview is free. And just for clarity, that is what I used initially and got sucked in. I was like, I need more. So this is really juicy. And again, we really, I think, just skimmed some of those highlights today, but it's a very lengthy and very in-depth document. And if you're into self-discovery and personal development, really, really cool. And again, I geek out on all those things, and I want to meet your friend and learn from her. Like, this was really, really cool. Okay, so definitely we would be so happy and grateful. Thank you. That's very kind of you to give us that link and to give the listeners a discount on their reading. Thank you very much. It's really kind. Sure. Elena, thank you for being on the chat. How can people in my community follow you and keep in touch with you? Where can they find you?
You can find me at elenaferranto.com. I'm on Instagram, Elena Ferranto or Elena.Ferranto. I have 2 accounts, one in English, one in Russian. And so Elena Ferranto, and I'll be happy to connect.
Thank you for coming. Yes, I would love to have you back. I'm sure, honestly, we are so similar. We talk for a long time. So I'm sure we can think of other topics that we would enjoy sharing with other people and spreading our joy and love through the chat.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Anita.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Bye for now.